Africa, potential challenges and risks. Africa is drawing increasing attention, not only from the perspective of businesses based in China and Europe, but also from operators across the African continent itself. In particular, closer economic ties between Africa and China have been covered extensively by the media recently, with fairly mixed reviews. This video will highlight the potential challenges and risks of doing business in Africa over the next few years. Let's take a look at the development of African economies beginning with the year 2000. Despite negative claims that the entire continent of Africa is a hopeless continent, the African continent has managed to survive the steepest contractions in the global economy since the 1930s and has been rebounding quickly over the last 15 years. African GDP has outpaced world growth since the start of the last commodity boom in the early 2000s, reaching 6% in mid-decade. Now, despite slowing sharply in 2009 as global growth and trade retreated, African growth has stayed positive at about 2%, and the downturn has been clearly V-shaped. In 2011 and 2012, Africa was expected to grow faster than any other region or country in the world, apart from India or China. And this is more than just a commodity story. Although Africa as a continent is not immune to global conditions, as seen in 2009, the continent is fairly resilient. For instance, a downturn more than a decade ago would have resulted in a negative growth of between 6 and 10%, and it would have taken another decade for growth to return to positive territory. The favorable outlook for the region is based on modest inflation, steadier exchange rates, and a smaller debt burden owing primarily to the debt write-offs through 2006 and 2007, although some countries have been building up their debt again since that time. Thus, with growth prospects buoyant and the number of African consumers on the rise, businesses can no longer afford to ignore this vast continent, with 53 countries, 54 now with South Sudan, and immense natural resources, including people. Let's step back for a moment. Although returns can be high, so are the risks across Africa today, in 2018. The African growth trajectory as early as 2012 was mapped out by a breakdown into regions, north, south, east, and west. Growth was forecast to hit over between 8 and 9% in some countries in the regions. In West Africa, for example, Nigeria, Angola, and the oil-based economies will dominate the region. Ghana also joined the oil club in 2011 with its first commercial output. East Africa is forecast to be the fastest growing region. Although Kenya has no natural resources, it is the key financial and business hub, and the Kenyan economy is expected to grow by 5 to 6% on the back of ongoing developments and reforms. Across the border, Uganda's discovery of oil has boosted growth and development, and Uganda has already joined the oil club. Key mineral producers will also perform well, like Tanzania, as will strong agricultural economies like Ethiopia. Africa will become an increasingly important food supplier to global markets. Countries without major resources but with a strong reform record, such as Rwanda, will also join the ranks of high growth achievers. In the South, South Africa has been one of the more exposed economies on the continent. The global slowdown has not been good news for South Africa, which has had its own kinds of economic problems going back to 2011. The recent news that the South African government may be reclaiming farms owned by white settlers and giving them back to black African landholders may prove more detrimental than good in the short term. Some countries will be poor performers, such as Zimbabwe and Swaziland. Given an ineffective political situation and poor policies, the growth of even 1% would be an achievement in these countries. In order to expand operations, businesses may need to look elsewhere on the continent until the political situation, particularly in South Africa, improves. The forces behind African growth. There are many factors behind Africa's growth spurts, including robust commodity prices, improved economic management, substantial debt relief, and increased private capital inflows. However, unlike earlier short-lived booms, two additional engines of growth that were largely absent before are underpinning these outputs. The first main driving force is surging external demand, especially from China and India, which are fast-growing countries in the world and hungry for resources, especially oil and minerals. OECD growth will be weak and fragile, but China and India and most other emerging markets will power ahead and be the main source of new demand for African goods. Emerging market demands will also help to keep commodity prices high. The second main driving force is the increasing pace of urbanization and consumerism on the African continent. As Africans flock to cities and disposable incomes rise, their demand for modern goods, such as telecommunications, banking, cell phones, and such, will accelerate. Global businesses, whether based in Asia, Europe, or the Americas, as well as homegrown African firms, will strive to meet this growing demand. The impact of these two megaforces offers hope that the bubble will not burst. But how quickly they translate into actual growth in particular countries depends on a host of other variables, including democracy and good governance, the state of the infrastructure, and the pace of deregulation, as well as the ease by which a person can actually start a business with little or no money in many cases. The demographic divide. Demographics is very important in modern Africa. It is one of the most populated and youngest markets in the world, with more than 1/2 of its population under age 25. By 2050, Africa's population of 2 billion will have overtaken that of India's 1.6 billion and China's 1.4 billion. Nigeria's population will lead the pack in sub-Saharan Africa, followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and South Africa. Tailing them will be 3 East African partners, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, with a combined population of around 200 million at the making of this video. As of 2015, the proportion of Africa's youth under age 15 has risen to about 45% of the total population of the continent. This raises some interesting possibilities. After all, young people, they will want to earn money, they will want to learn skills, and they will want to burn through their earnings. At the same time, Africa is urbanizing rapidly, and about 40% of the population of the continent now live in cities, a lower ratio than that of China, but higher than that of India. The youthful demographic is urbanizing the fastest. The consumer boom. As Africans move to the cities and acquire more disposable income, and the middle class grows, demand for modern goods and services will continue. By 2030, the continent's top 18 cities could have a combined spending power of over $1.3 trillion. By 2050, 63% of Africa's population will be urban populations. Africa's consumers can be divided into 3 main tiers, and businesses will need to build their strategies accordingly. The first tier is the rising and the future middle-class markets of 350 to 500 million persons, similar to the segments in India and China. The second tier is the number of consumers at the bottom of the economic pyramid, which is growing, and the ascent of the mobile phone has proven that there is a market. The third is the challenge for firms to move from basic goods to affordable products. Branding Africa is very important at this stage. Companies will need to look at all three strategies, but new investors and existing investors will also need to look at the broader consumer markets. The mobile phone revolution. Against all expectations, the mobile phone market has grown extremely rapidly in a very short time. The reason for this is Africa's very poor landline infrastructure, which is being improved, by the way. The number of mobile phone subscribers jumped from around 0 in the mid-1990s and has reached an incredible 360 million by 2010, which equates to 45% of the population. Africa's ongoing connection to the global fiber optic network is a major boost for the sector. 3 new submarine cables were laid in 2009 and 2010 alone. Teams, CECOM, and SA have been laying cables around the African continent, and more have been laid or are planned at the making of this video. What does the rise in mobile usage mean for other sectors? The mobile phone is more than a conversation tool or for telebanking. It provides farmers and traders with up-to-date market information and is becoming the main tool for accessing the internet on the African continent. Mobile internet is growing rapidly in some markets, such as in Kenya, where subscriber numbers more than doubled in 2010 alone to 4.7 million, and this trend will definitely continue. The emergence of mobile phones as a financial instrument is one of the most important developments in African states today. Pioneered in Kenya by market leader Safaricom, and now spreading to other markets are money transfer systems such as M-Pesa. These are proving immensely popular, especially given the difficulty that many people face in accessing formal banking services. M-Pesa now has more than 12 million subscribers, and M-Kesho, another transfer system, hit 600,000 in just a few months. Consequently, there has been a rapid emergence in competing products, which will facilitate the spread of real commerce and e-commerce, as well as provide a new platform for official transfers and the payment of bills. And last but not least, the mobile phone and the internet played a major role in the Arab Spring. In the next video, we're going to deal with the question of mining across Africa, the influence of China, and political reforms in Africa. Stay tuned. This program is sponsored by BayesList.com World Classifieds. You can post the same ad to the same category in multiple cities across the USA at the same time, exposing your ads to extensive market reach nationwide. Visit the site today. Go to BEYSLIST.com right now. Thanks for watching. Take care. This is Mohammed Bey. You can help me make more videos about business, news, and opportunities in African states today by supporting my Patreon campaign and the Exodus Film Project, the 3-film project series designed to help African Americans learn more about how they can live in African countries on a full or part-time basis. Please support the Exodus Film Project today, and please support our work to make more videos and programs about business in modern Africa. Thanks for watching. Take care.